Good morning. This is Joyce Glass. I am the Right Coach, and I'm here today getting my iPad fixed up. Trying to do the Periscope on the iPad here and get rid of the ugly. Good morning. Who is Pleasant Kind? What's your name? Glad you're here. Good morning, Mary and Andy Lee. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Joyce Glass, the Right Coach, and today we are going to talk about the clarity of message. Morning, Pleasant Kind. What is your name? Your real name? Dwayne Wayne. All right. Good morning. Welcome. I'm glad all of you are here. Again, I'm Joyce Glass. I'm the Right Coach. I'm a writer and speaker, and I help writers and speakers and entrepreneurs go through the book writing process. Tanya. Great to meet you, Tanya. Hold on a second. Let me do something here. There we go. I had to get my iPad turned around so the messages were popping up where I could read them and not have to do this to read them. So thank you. Hopefully I didn't make you seasick. So how is everyone this morning? I hope you're doing and having good morning. Again, real quick, I'm Joyce Glass, the Right Coach. I am a writer and speaker, and I help writers and speakers and business owners through the book writing process. And that is something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. Andy Lee is back. I guess you had to pop out and come back. But I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about, do you have a clear message for your book? And that's always important. Do you know exactly what you want to share with people? Have you thought it really all the way through as much as you can before you get writing? Because a lot of times when we start to write, these wonderful ideas come out that we weren't even sure were there before, you know. So it's great when we think things through, and we're going to talk about that real quick today. Last week, I encourage you to watch last week's Periscope. I talked about worldview, and when you know your worldview, your point of view on the world, when you know that makes your message for each of your books very clear. And as I mentioned last week, I'm in a program called Speak with Suzanne Evans and Larry Wingett, and for months and months and months and months, they went over a point of view. And like I said last week, it's not something that just all of a sudden you come up with in a day or two. It's something that you think about, and at your core, you know your point of view, but articulating it in words in a powerful way can take some time. It took me a little time to actually get mine tweaked, and it always can be tweaked even more. But to give you a background on that, my point of view, when Larry first talked about that back in November of last year, I went to the first conference about Speak, and when I first heard him talk about point of view, I was like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, what? I know I have a point of view, but what exactly is it, and how do I articulate it? And at that time, and most of you may know, I am a Christian, and so of course my point of view is going to be through that filter of the Christian world and my faith. And so my point of view, you know, my first thought was, God is all powerful. To me, I mean, that's the bottom line. But that's a fact. That's not my point of view, or that's a fact in my world. I know not everybody agrees with that. But God is all powerful. Okay, so that was my part of my point of view, but that wasn't my point of view. That was more of a statement than it is a point of view. You know, that's a statement from Christianity. All right, so my point of view, then after I tweaked it and worked on it, thank you. After I tweaked it and worked on it, then it became, if your life lacks power, you are seeking religion, not a relationship with God, because everything to me is based on a relationship with God. You get power from God by having a relationship with Him. You get peace and wisdom from God because you have a relationship with Him. That's where my worldview came into, okay? Now I'll give you Larry's worldview. Larry's point of view is everything's your own damn fault. That's his point of view, okay? Well, his point of view, you can see it in every single one of his books. I meant to do this before we got started and I forgot. Let me pull up Larry Wingett's books. If you look on Amazon.com, and you will see Larry's point of view in every single one of his titles. If you follow Larry on Facebook, you will see his point of view in every single one of his quotes. So that's the whole thing. Your message is going to be based on your point of view, your message for your book, whatever your book, because your point of view goes across everything. Like Larry's point of view can be used for sales, customer service. Larry's point of view can be used for leadership. It can be used for marriage. It can be used for parenting. Does that make sense? So your message is going to go across different categories, different objectives. It's going to make sense. Okay? So that's why you have to know what your point of view is and really hash that out with yourself so that when you go to write a book, then that book is going to be based on that point of view, but you're not going to be saying, like, I'm not going to be talking about, in my point of view, if your life lacks power, you're seeking religion, not a relationship. I'm going to be talking about how you develop that relationship with God and why that's important. That's going to be the underlying factor of your book. And that's just like the book I wrote, which is around here somewhere. Hold on. The book I wrote here, I Need God, Daily Downloads for Your Heart. The whole basis in this book is about seeking a relationship with God and getting closer to Him. I'm looking up Larry here real quick. Because I wanted to read to you some of just reading his titles, you'll see his point of view. You're broke because you want to be. How to stop getting by and start getting ahead. Do you see that? You're broke because it's your choice. It's called work for a reason. He's all about personal responsibility. Grow a pair, okay? Again, take responsibility. Shut up, stop whining, get a life. Take responsibility. Do you see it? People are idiots and I can prove it. Your kids are your own fault. Okay, there's his point of view right there. It's your life is your own damn fault. Your kids are your own fault. No time for facts. Let's see. That's just 365 days of wit, words, and wisdom from Larry. Shut up, stop whining, get a life. I think I already said that. The simple way to success. Success is your own damn fault. If you're successful, that is because you have worked out the plan to get there. Not all things, a lot of success just doesn't happen to people. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes. Steven Spielberg did not become successful overnight. And you can read, or Steven Spielberg, or Stephen King. I was thinking Stephen King. Because I've read his book on writing. It's his memoir. And then he talks about the writing, how his writing and how it affected the craft of writing. And his life was very hard. And success did not come to him easily. He kept a stack of rejection letters in his room for years. And it was more of an inspiration for him to keep plugging, to keep trying, to keep moving. A lot of people think of Stephen King, even though, his writing is not my favorite. I admire him because of his story, because he did keep trying, because even though he is in a quirky category, what I call it, it's not a category that I personally enjoy, but obviously a lot of people do. But he kept going at it because it did relate to somebody. Somebody did finally say, hey, this is really good. So I highly recommend reading that book. But all of that to say, you have to have clarity of where you're coming from on your point of view to know, especially if you're writing a nonfiction book, how to get that framework started for your nonfiction book. And so what a framework is, I call it a loose outline. I'm not into rigid outlines, and there are multiple ways to get your information out there. And sometimes, and I was listening to something recently, they suggested this, and I've done this many times, is just start writing your thoughts out to get your plan out, to get your ideas out, because you may have a concept in mind, but you're not totally sure how to present it or how to clearly articulate it, and just kind of start writing, and you can create a loose outline out of that. But what you want to do is you want to begin with the end in mind. You want to, and if anybody has any questions during this, please, or any comments, please share, and thank you for those who have shared. But if begin with the end in mind. If you know, okay, at the end of, say you're writing a book about customer service, at the end, you want people to know XYZ. These are steps to great customer service. For me, I write devotionals. I write ways to grow closer to God. And then it was, okay, how can people go closer to God? You want to ask questions of yourself, and you may even want to ask questions of other people. What are they looking for? What are they that they need more information on? What do they not understand on your topic? So what problem can you solve? That is what you want. All right. You want to know what problem you can solve. And you want to know how you can help someone. If you have a way that you can help someone, do you have a proven system that works for others? Then you want to articulate that clearly and make those steps clear. What experiences do you have that you can share to make it relevant to someone else? You know, everybody loves a story, and if you could tell a really good story, you're able to share with people how to do whatever it is that you've learned to do, and they can understand from your point of view, just like I shared about my point of view and how I came to that point of view and how it took time to get from, okay, this is my thought, I know this is what I believe, but what does that mean? What is my point of view of that thought? And that's what you want to get to. If your message isn't clear, like I said, you just need to start writing your thoughts out, and they will become more clear. And then you want to articulate. What I do is I create what I call a loose outline or a framework, and I ask myself a couple questions. You know, what's my topic going to be? How am I going to help this? Thank you, Tanya. I'm glad this is helpful to you. How am I going to help them? What are 3 things? So let's just say, we'll just take for instance, my book, A Relationship with God. And I do this for the whole book, and I do this for each chapter. And I will say, okay, in chapter 1 was, I rebel. So I'm going to talk about rebellion. Well, what are ways that we rebel? And list 3, 4, 5 ways, you know, that we rebel. And then I talked about each of those ways in the book. And what I did is, this is a devotional, so I did an introduction each week and then 5 days. And so each day I would talk about a different thing about rebellion and how we rebel and how it affects our relationship with God. Okay, so you want to articulate, okay, what are the things that I want to share, and then back it up. Think about if you were that person asking you questions, or if you were being interviewed, what are some good questions somebody would ask you? And those are the questions you need to answer and answer in your book. So those are things that you want to do to create a great framework for your book, is by asking questions. Now, next week, I'm doing a webinar called The Right Life, and it's called 6 Steps to the Best Book Ever. And in that, I'm going to show you some more details of how I create my framework, and I will send out the PDF on that as well. So that's next week, Thursday, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time or at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can choose which time works best for you. And you can sign up at joyceglass.org, and I'll see if will it let me make a comment? No, it won't let me make a comment. If somebody could write this down and then put it in the comments so people could see, and then when I will also have this on Twitter and Facebook. But where you can sign up is joyceglass.org/BBE, which stands for Best Book Ever, BB the letter E, forever, webinar, and that's it. So it's Joyce, Joyce, glass.org/BBE for best book ever, webinar. So it's just the initials, BBE, webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. Welcome, Brandon. We're almost done here, but I am glad that you're here. And I wanted to, I'm Joyce Glass, the Write Coach. And we just went over clarity and why it's important, how to create a framework for your book. And I'm going to go into much greater detail. And thank you. If you could actually, if you can post that one more time, Tanya, so that Brandon or anybody else can catch it. But it's joyceglass.org/BBE for best book ever webinar. That's going to be next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time or 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You have it, your choice, which one you want to go. But I'm going to be talking more about this, more about clarity and vision, and begin with the end in mind. You want to have a loose outline of your book before you start. And then for each chapter, thank you, Tanya, there it is again, joyceglass.org/BBE webinar. And I want you to be able to have that framework. You're going to get it as a PDF after you go to the webinar, or even if you just sign up for the webinar. Anybody who signs up for the webinar, I'm going to send that out. There's the 6 steps for writing a book that we're going to go through, as well as the 6-step writing plan, which is this framework that I talk about where you ask questions of yourself, and I get into more detail in that webinar. But you want to begin with the end in the mind. What problem are you solving? How are you helping someone? Do you have a system? Do you have some kind of success in your life that you can share in a way that others can duplicate that? Or what experience do you have doing that? Share your stories, because when you share your stories or the stories of others that you've helped, it's a great way to relate the information. Because let me tell you something. People remember stories a lot more than they remember facts and figures. They can't probably tell you the facts and figures, but if you tell them a story, they will remember it. And I will tell you that's true, because one of the ladies who spoke at the conference in November that I mentioned back that I went to, Lisa Ford, told a story about a dry cleaner. I can tell you that story very well because she presented it very well, and it all of her points related to that story. So I could tell you most of the points. I may not be exact, or I may not have all of them, but I could tell you most of the points because she was talking about customer service. And she did it as an example for us. We were not necessarily customer service people. A lot of us are business owners, writers, and speakers. But what she was doing is she was presenting her keynote that she does for customer service to give us an example of what a great keynote entails and how you do it. And she is paid very well to do what she does and goes all over the country. And that is an exciting thing. When you can tell a good story, that's a gift that you have, and you can work on that. I mean, just like the gift of writing. You know, Olympic athletes do not just come out of the womb Olympic athletes. They work really, really hard to become Olympic athletes. And writers need to work really, really hard to become really good writers. Same thing with speakers. So again, I am so glad that all of you came today. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. And like I said, next week, I'm going to go into more detail about the framework and how it works and how to do it on my webinar called The Write Life, WRITE, 6 Steps to the Best Book Ever. And it's joyceglass.org/BBE webinar for best book ever, BBE as forever webinar. And again, if you're following me on Twitter or Facebook, I will be posting about this, the link for you to sign up. So I'm glad that you came today. And if nobody has any questions, we're going to go. Does anybody have anything for today? And I hope, if you do, go ahead and type it in real quick. I hope you have a happy Wednesday. Thank you again, Tanya. So glad you were here. It's nice to meet you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on Twitter or Facebook. You can always catch me one of those places Both of them notify me when I have messages, so I'd be happy to connect with you there. So have a great day. Thank you.